Welcome to our deep dive into the histories of Assyria and Syria. You've probably been wondering about the connection between these two terms, and rightfully so. I mean, they're sometimes used interchangeably. But for modern Assyrians, that distinction carries a lot of weight. So today we're going to be untangling this historical knot with academic articles and historical notes. We even have a little bit of ancient mythology. And by the end, you'll understand why this nuance resonates so strongly with a particular cultural identity.
Yeah, and what's really captivating is how these ancient Greek writings can really illuminate the evolution of these terms. It all began when the Greeks ventured eastward and they encountered this vast Assyrian empire. Just imagine sailing into the eastern Mediterranean or the Black Sea region and coming face to face with a civilization unlike any you've known.
I can only imagine what those early encounters must have been like. I mean, the Greeks trying to make sense of this new world.
Right. They met people that they called Assyrians or Syrians, and they often used the names interchangeably. But this wasn't just some kind of casual naming practice. Their use actually reflected the political and geographical reality of the time. We're talking about an empire that stretched from the Mediterranean to beyond the Tigris River.
Wow, that's a huge area.
It is a massive area.
And to think that they even distinguished between white Syrians in Cappadocia, who were probably descendants of Assyrian expansion, and then the darker-skinned Syrians further south, it really speaks volumes about how they perceived the world back then. I mean, categorizing people based on geography and physical features.
Yeah, absolutely. This practice really reflects the fluidity of identity in ancient times. Even something as fundamental as skin tone was linked to a person's place of origin. But there's another really intriguing example of how the Greeks intertwined their understanding of Assyria with the world around them. And that's the city of Sinope on the Black Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Greek mythology tells the story of Apollo abducting Sinope from Syria, linking this distant city to Assyrian influence through myth.
It's amazing how mythology and history intertwine. It gives us a glimpse into how the Greeks connected seemingly disparate regions through their stories and beliefs. But as the Greeks delved deeper into Asia, their understanding of these terms started to shift. Their definition of Assyria narrowed geographically, focusing on the area around Nineveh, while Syria continued to encompass those western lands. What do you think drove this change in perspective?
Well, this is where the role of Aramaic becomes really crucial. Aramaic was the lingua franca of the Assyrian Empire. It was kind of like English today, spoken across diverse cultures and continents. So as the Greeks encountered this vast network of Aramaic speakers, they began to associate the language with the political entity of Assyria, even though Assyria had its own distinct culture and identity. This linguistic connection inadvertently blurred the lines between the two.
That's fascinating. It makes you wonder about the implications of such a powerful language on the identity of those within the empire. Did the widespread use of Aramaic, despite facilitating communication and trade, overshadow the unique cultural markers of the Assyrians?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the classic theory.
Okay.
The idea that Syria is just a shortened version of Assyria.
Okay.
And that this simplification came about because of the Greeks.
Right, the ancient Greeks?
The ancient Greeks, exactly.
Now, that makes sense to me because, you've got these, explorers going out into the world. They're encountering all these new lands, all these new peoples.
It's only natural that they're going to try to,
to adapt
these foreign names to their own language.
To something that they
Well, it's easier to say. And we actually see this kind of shortening happening in other cases, too.
Give me an example.
Like with the word Assyrioi,
Okay.
which is what the Greeks called the Assyrians.
Okay. Assyrioi.
Yeah, they shorten that to Syroi.
Oh, interesting.
So it's the same kind of pattern.
Yeah.
And if you look at early Greek texts, you'll actually find that they use Assyria and Syria almost interchangeably.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes they'll even use those terms to refer to places that we wouldn't associate with either Assyria or Syria today. Like, for example, Gaza.
Okay, Gaza, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it really gives you a sense of how fluid these geographical concepts were for the Greeks.
Okay.
At least in their early understanding of the region.
Yeah, they're just kind of exploring. They're figuring things out.
Exactly.
And so this idea that Syria comes from Assyria,
Right.
that was kind of the accepted theory.
It was the prevailing view for a long time, and then along comes John Tvetnes.
Okay, John Tvetnes. Now, is this a scholar?
He is a scholar.
Okay.
And in 1981, he publishes a paper
Okay.
where he basically says, well, hold on a second.
Uh-huh.
I don't think this Assyrian connection actually holds up.
So he's rejecting.
Yeah, he's totally rejecting the consensus.
Wow. Okay, so what is his argument? What's he basing that on?
So he makes a couple of really interesting points.
Okay.
First of all, he points out that there are some geographical discrepancies
Yep.
between the Assyrian heartland
Uh-huh.
and the regions that are typically associated with Syria.
Okay, so there's like a geographical mismatch.
Yeah, like they don't quite line up
Okay.
the way you would expect if one name came from the other.
Makes sense.
And then his second point is that he says, look, the phonetic shift from Assyria to Syria is actually pretty unlikely.
Okay, so he's saying that the way the words sound,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense.
Not a natural progression.
It's not a natural progression. Okay.
So he's basically like, I don't think this works.
He's like debunking this theory.
Exactly.
Okay.
But he doesn't just stop there.
Of course not.
He actually proposes an alternative origin for the word Syria.
Oh, okay. What does he think it comes from?
So he thinks it might actually come from the Egyptian term Hur.
Okay.
Yeah, which referred to a group of people
Right.
who inhabited Syria
Okay.
before the Arameans.
Wow. Okay, so now we've got a whole other group of people
I know, right?
thrown into the mix.
It just gets more and more interesting.
So now instead of just Greeks and Assyrians,
Right.
we've got Egyptians and these Hur people.
Exactly. And I love how this is like
It's a real detective
a
story.
historical detective story where, we're challenging what we thought we knew
Yeah.
based on new evidence.
Right.
It kind of makes you think about, have you ever held a belief
Oh, yeah.
that was just
All the time.
completely shattered by some new information?
Especially when it comes to history, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I thought I knew about this is not true at all.
Right.
Okay, so Trevetnus is shaking things up.
He is throwing a wrench in the works.
He's throwing a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
And then,
And then
2002, big year.
Big year.
The Çineköy inscription.
The Çineköy inscription, this is a game changer.
Okay, what is this inscription?
So it's this bilingual text.
Bilingual.
Yeah, it's written in two languages, hieroglyphic Luwian,
Hieroglyphic Luwian.
yeah,
Okay.
and Phoenician.
Okay.
And it dates back to the 8th century BC.
8th century BC, so this is way before.
Here it says centuries before the earliest Greek sources.
Okay, so we're talking even older
We're going further back in time.
than what the Greeks were writing about.
Exactly.
Oh.
And what's really remarkable about this inscription is that it uses the term surai,
Surah.
Surah, yeah, as the Luwian equivalent
Oh.
of the Phoenician word for Assyria.
Oh, so this is like a Rosetta Stone type situation.
It's kind of like a Rosetta Stone, yeah.
We've got two languages side by side.
Yeah.
And it's showing us.
And it's showing us that a shortened form of Assyria existed way before the Greeks came along.
Whoa. Okay, so does this mean we can just throw out the Greek theory then?
Well, it definitely complicates things.
Okay.
Because now we have proof that the name wasn't a Greek invention.
Yeah.
But remember Tefeli's and his arguments about the phonetic shift?
Yeah.
Well, the Çineköy inscription actually adds another layer to that debate
Okay.
because some scholars believe that the way the Luwians wrote the word Assyria suggests that they might have pronounced it without the initial A. So more like
Surai.
Syrai.
Yeah.
Wow.
So on the one hand, the inscription seems to support the idea that Syria comes from Assyria,
Uh-huh.
but it also throws the Greek connection into question.
Right.
And then we still have Tebnis's alternative theory out there.
Right. With the Egyptian connection.
Exactly.
So it's like
we've opened up
more questions.
more questions than answers.
It's like a historical whodunit.
It really is.
Where we have all these clues.
Right.
But we're not sure how they all fit together.
I'm not sure who the culprit is.
Right. And it seems like with each new piece of evidence, we're just getting more and more.
More and more questions.
More and more questions.
Exactly.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, this is where things get even more fascinating.
Okay.
Because both Assyria and Syria, they undergo this transformation in meaning.
Okay.
They start out as political labels.
Political?
And geographical labels.
Okay, so they're talking about,
who's in charge.
Who's in charge and
where the boundaries are. Where the boundaries are.
Right.
Okay.
But over time, they become something more ethnological.
Okay, ethnological. So relating to...
To culture.
To culture.
And ethnicity.
And ethnicity.
Okay, so how does that happen?
Yeah, let's break that down.
Okay, so let's go back to the Assyrian Empire at its peak.
Okay.
Back when it was this vast and powerful force.
Wow.
At that time, both Assyria and Syria were primarily used to describe the territories that the Assyrians controlled.
So it was all about who ruled what land.
Exactly. It wasn't so much about specific cultures or ethnicities.
So the meaning wasn't as nuanced as it is today.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But as the Greeks start interacting more with different groups in the region, they start to recognize that there are these distinct cultural identities.
Okay.
And they realize that the term Assyrian actually refers to a more specific group of people centered around Nineveh.
Okay, so Assyrian is getting more
Specific.
more specific.
More geographically focused.
More geographically focused.
Okay.
While Syrian, on the other hand,
Yeah.
starts to encompass this much broader cultural sphere
Okay.
that's largely dominated by the Arameans.
Okay, so Assyria is shrinking.
In a way, yeah.
And Syria is expanding.
Expanding to include
a wider range
of people.
Okay. And basically the political map is being redrawn in their minds as they're learning more.
As they're learning more about the people.
About the people who actually live in these regions.
Exactly.
Okay, so I get how Assyria becomes more specific.
Right.
But how does Syrian becomes synonymous with Aramean?
That's a great question.
That seems like a pretty big leap.
It is a big leap.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you consider the historical context.
Yeah, right.
So remember that the Arameans are becoming the dominant cultural force in the region during this period.
Their language and their culture spread like wildfire. And it becomes so influential that Syrian, which is already associated with this broader cultural sphere, it just kind of naturally becomes synonymous
with Aramean.
Okay,
so it's like a linguistic takeover.
Just like a linguistic takeover, exactly.
They didn't conquer with armies. They conquered with
words.
With words.
And culture.
And culture, yeah. And we see the legacy of that linguistic dominance even today.
Yes.
Like when we talk about Syriac, that's referring to
certain dialects of Aramaic. Or Syriac script, which is the Aramaic alphabet.
The Aramaic alphabet.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So these ancient linguistic shifts are still with us today.
They're embedded in our language.
We're embedded in our language.
Absolutely.
That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing, and it's what makes studying language so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like a window into the cultural dynamics of the past.
Yeah, it's like a secret code that we can unlock to understand, you know, how people lived and interacted.
How they saw the world.
How they saw the world thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It is cool.
Yeah. It really is amazing to think about how, you know, the words we use today have this, you know,
long history behind them.
This long history behind them, this evolution of meaning.
Right. And it's not just, you know, a one-way street. Like sometimes meanings can shift back and forth.
No, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like we see this with Assyria and Syria.
Okay, how so?
So even after Syria became the more common term, some later Greek writers, especially those who were really interested in religion and antiquity.
So like the old school stuff?
Yeah, they kind of had this fascination with the distant past.
Okay.
They actually started bringing back the term Assyrian.
Oh, wow. So Assyrian made a comeback.
It made a comeback, but in a very specific way.
Okay, so how are they using it?
Well, think of it as like ancient branding.
Ancient branding. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. So for example, let's take the cult of Atargatis.
Atargatis?
Yeah, she was a goddess.
Okay.
Who was worshipped in Hierapolis.
And Hierapolis, that's in present-day Syria.
Exactly.
Okay.
So she was widely known as the Syrian goddess.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Because she's associated with Syria.
Exactly. But some writers preferred to call her Assyrian.
Why would they do that?
It seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But it was all about tapping into a sense of...
Of what?
Grandeur mystery. They wanted to connect her to this mighty Assyrian empire.
I see.
To give her this
like
kind of...
authority.
Yeah, like historical weight.
Okay. And
prestige.
Syrian just didn't have the same...
It didn't have the same oomph.
Oomph.
Yeah. It's like they were trying to create this brand of like vintage goddess.
Vintage goddess. It's a good one.
Yeah. To appeal to a certain religious sensibility.
Okay.
So it's really fascinating how they used language to shape perceptions.
Yeah.
To create this specific image.
It's like marketing.
It is like marketing.
Yeah. They're trying to sell you on...
They're trying to sell you on this goddess.
On this goddess.
By associating her with Assyria.
With Assyria.
Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing how even in ancient times, people were using language in these really sophisticated ways.
Absolutely.
To influence how other people thought.
Yeah, to shape their understanding.
It makes you think about, you know, the ways that we use language today to frame our understanding of history.
That's a really good point.
Like, you know, certain terms carry a lot of baggage.
Yeah, they do.
And they can really influence.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about the words themselves, it's about
It's about the power.
the power that they hold. And this brings us to the crux of the matter, the modern implications of this historical distinction. Why does this seemingly subtle difference between Assyria and Syria matter so much in the present day?
Well, for modern Assyrians, reclaiming the term Assyria isn't just about correcting a historical inaccuracy. It's about asserting their direct genealogical connection to the ancient Assyrian civilization, a lineage that has often been obscured or denied.
It's about recognizing the enduring legacy of a people who, despite centuries of displacement and persecution, have managed to preserve their cultural identity.
Exactly. It's about honoring their ancestors, acknowledging their contributions to world history, and affirming their rightful place within the tapestry of human civilization. The use of Assyria acts as a powerful symbol of their resilience, a testament to the enduring strength of their cultural heritage.
So by understanding the historical evolution of these terms, we're not just engaging in some academic exercise, we're actually taking a step towards a more accurate and respectful representation of Assyrian identity today. It's about recognizing the legitimacy and importance of a distinct cultural narrative that's been marginalized for far too long.
Absolutely. It's about giving a voice to people who have, for generations, fought to preserve their language, their traditions, and their collective memory. It's about making sure that their story, their unique contribution to human history, is finally told and understood.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should this historical deep dive into Assyria versus Syria matter in your world?
I think it's an invitation to question assumptions, to delve deeper into the language that we use, and to recognize the power of words to shape perceptions and influence identities. Think about other terms that we use in our daily lives. Do they carry similar historical baggage? Are we using them in a way that acknowledges the complexities of history and culture?
It's like realizing that the map we've been using to navigate the world is incomplete. Like it's missing these crucial details and perspectives. This deep dive has given us a more accurate map, one that recognizes the distinct contours of Assyrian identity and history.
And it encourages us to approach history not just as a collection of facts and dates, but as a tapestry woven from the lived experiences of individuals and communities. The story of Assyria versus Syria is a reminder that history is dynamic. It's constantly evolving as we uncover new evidence and challenge old assumptions.
And we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the sources that we've provided. We really encourage you to continue this journey of discovery and delve deeper into the rich history and culture of Assyria.
Yeah, and as you continue your exploration, think about this. What other instances can you think of where terminology has evolved over time, shaping cultural identities in the process? How can we become more aware of the historical weight that language carries and use it more responsibly to reflect the complexities of human experience?
That is a thought-provoking question to ponder as we conclude our deep dive. We hope you've gained a newfound appreciation for the intricate relationship between language history and cultural identity. Maybe you've even had a few aha moments along the way. Remember, the journey of understanding is ongoing. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep listening to those whose stories have yet to be fully told. Thanks for joining us on this adventure of discovery.